Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over the market and let's go over Tesla on a pretty wild day for the market and Tesla especially. So if you enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that like button as it does help a lot. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live. The link is down below for $3 a month. In the description of the video, you can access all my updates, thoughts, posts, etc. pretty much throughout the day as Tesla is trading. So if you're interested, the link is down below. But let's just jump right into it. Tesla closing the day down a pretty whopping 4%, which is definitely an underperformance for the market. That is down about 1% for QQ at least. So definitely a bit of an underperformance, almost like we're playing catch up from yesterday's flat movement while the market pretty much tanked. So let's talk about it. Right? What does this all mean? So pretty wild morning, right? It was a pretty brutal morning. In all honesty, like things were just getting crushed. But the way I look at it is as follows. So there's obviously good news and bad news, right? But the overall picture, right? Sometimes you want to just ignore all the small noise and things in between and just kind of take a look at the overall picture. And to me, the overall picture on the weekly is where it exists essentially. So the way I look at it is pretty simple here. So I guess we'll start off with the weekly. So obviously, we had this bull flag right here that we broke out of on these weekly candles over here. It came up to my 265 target I've been talking about for a while. Rejected pretty much almost exactly at 265. And then, of course, we came right back down. And what do we do so far? At least today, again, it's too early to call a victory yet for the bulls here. But seemingly, at least what we're trying to do, especially if we're holding above pretty much this 21 EMA here, 100-day moving average, bouncing off of both of those. We're still above the 50-day moving average, which is well below us. We're still above the 200-day moving average, which is also well below us, right? We're above all these on the weekly still, which is good news. But the overall kind of picture I'm seeing here on top of what I just shared is we're pretty much just looking for that retest, right? I've been talking about this retest for quite a long time, right? Whenever you break out of anything, really, in this case, a bull flag, a bull pennant, a bear pennant, a wedge, a triangle, whatever, it's common to go for a retest. And that's exactly, in my opinion, what we've been doing here so far today. We just went for a retest, right? Again, you just kind of zoom out and you kind of take a look, right? Here's the bull flag, broke out, rejected, came back down, beautiful retest on the weekly, also kind of following through on this inverted bearish hammer candle, or I think some people call it a shooting star, but I just call it inverted bearish hammer candle. But nonetheless, kind of following through on that as well. And this is kind of the follow through right here. You can see just literally off this movement really today, honestly, right? Which is almost like a 6% follow through, which is pretty respectable. But all in all, I just look at it as it's just nothing more than a simple retest. Now, obviously, as with all retests, there is a chance that this also ends up being a fake, right? And it ends up being overall a fake breakout, and we just collapse back into the bull flag, at which point I will probably cut losses on my shares and whatnot. And then, of course, reassess it from there, because I think Tesla can start turning more bearish pretty quickly. I don't want to see it come back into this bull flag and start especially closing daily and especially weekly candles inside of it. That would be not ideal. Could be also a trap, but that's not something I'd want to see, because it starts getting substantially more risky in my opinion. But as it stands right now, we got a little bit of an ETBT bounce from here, right? Not a crazy one. We ended up selling off towards the end of the close, which is unfortunate, or to the end of the day, which is a bit unfortunate because we did bounce up to almost like the 241s, which would have been beautiful to see actually. But nonetheless, so far we're barely hanging on to what could be just nothing more than a retest, right? Obviously, and I tell my members this all the time, retests are scary. When you're coming back down for these kind of retests, as the retest pretty much is happening, it's kind of scary, right? It's kind of spooky because things can collapse, right? You're kind of playing on thin ice here, right? There's not a lot of room for mistakes here, but in hindsight, a lot of retests, when you look back at this, let's say in 2-3 weeks from now, for instance, assuming it plays out the way I expect it to, you'll look back and be like, wow, that really just was a simple retest. How did I not buy that dip, right? Again, obviously things can change, but just strictly off of what it looks like at this very moment, I just look at it as nothing more than a retest. And that's exactly what it looks like on the daily as well. As you can see here, we zoom out. I changed the candles, by the way. I took the greens and I put them to white. I think it looks cleaner. Honestly, the white on the black looks a lot more clean in my opinion. But nonetheless, we have this, obviously same thing. The weekly, we had the bull flag, we broke out, and now same thing here. We're back down to the retest. So obviously we broke down from this wedge. This wedge essentially pretty much forced us into this retest, which is exactly where we are. So far finding some bounce there, right? Not the biggest bounce in the world. We did close below my levels that I wanted to close above, which we'll talk about very soon. But all in all, that's just the way I'm looking at it. Now, there are a few caveats here, or not caveats, I guess, more bullish things, if you will, at least from now, from what I see. And the fact that is going to be, I'm seeing some hidden bullish divergences where you can see here, the RSI is obviously making lower lows now, right? It made a new low pretty much lower than any of these levels were back here, right? As you can obviously see right here. Now, the thing that's interesting though is the stock itself isn't really making lower lows. Like we're still making either the same levels that we were back here that we were trading, or higher. You know what I mean? Especially compared to the RSI. So in other words, the RSI is making lower lows while the stock is arguably making higher lows, if not equal lows, which is a hidden bullish divergence. And that's also the case on the 4-hour chart, where same idea. You can see this candle right here, for instance, right? This was the low part of the candle, right? With the RSI respective, of course, right? And that's where the RSI was sitting at, somewhere around 40 pretty much. And we bounced, came back down. And now the stock is obviously making higher lows, right? We're obviously not nowhere near, but we're not at this low. We're definitely higher than this low, right? This is about 230 and we're sitting at almost 240. RSI, once again, making pretty obvious lower lows. That's yet another hidden bullish divergence, which is, of course, like the name implies, a bullish divergence, just hidden because it's a little more difficult to spot. And on top of that, it's a little more, that's just the name for it. I don't make the names. It's just called the hidden bullish divergence, but obviously it's bullish. So that's really important to understand as well. So again, overall, the way I look at this is that it's just a retest. Things are still looking good. It is kind of spooky. It is kind of scary. I think some hands are being shaken out. And this is what I told my members yesterday. If I can zoom into it somewhere. I said yesterday how I personally want to see, should be somewhere around here, yeah. 1 day ago, which is yesterday, instincts tell me we need another shakeout before the real move up begins. That could happen if we bleed into the 230s this week as a final bear trap. And that's exactly what happened. Obviously, like I said, it's too early for bulls and, myself as a bull, of course, to call, a victory here. And yeah, it's a bear trap. I still think it's too early. We'll talk about why soon. But again, so far, it's playing out the way I expected it to. I've been calling for this retest for quite some time. Obviously, I've been saying 240s, right? 242 is my level I've been talking about for a while, but naturally, the longer it takes, since this is a bull flag that's consistently going down, 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 down like this, the longer it takes, the lower we have to go to get a retest, which in this case happened to be somewhere around this kind of, 236, 237-ish level, right? And that's exactly what happened today as well. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, right? All in all, so far, the overall structure to me still looks actually quite bullish, to be completely honest, unless we, of course, start collapsing well into the 230s, like the bottom half of the 230s and closing candles down there. That's when I'm going to start going, okay, well, you know what? Maybe the bulls are really not just stepping in when they needed to, and this can start turning bearish pretty quickly. So that's the way I look at it. Pretty simple. Now, let's talk about some caveats. Let's talk about some bearish things. Let's talk about what things are not looking too good, I guess you can say. First and foremost, we're closing below the 100 or the 21 EMA on the daily, right? We haven't done that for a while. We've been keeping above it ever since this breakout over here, and we've been pretty much keeping right above the 21 EMA ever since pretty much this whole rally. Today, now we officially have closed the first candle in quite some time below the 21 EMA, which isn't the most ideal thing. Like I said, I have a 2 to 3 day rule. So as long as we recapture the 21 EMA, ideally by Friday, it's perfectly fine. Like, it's not an issue in my opinion. It just ended up being a false breakdown. That's perfectly fine. That's why I give these kind of, things a 2 to 3 day rule. That's number one. So we're below the 21 EMA. Second thing that I'm not very happy about is the fact that we did close below 240, right? I was telling my members that personally, what I would like to see as a close today is above 240, like at least above 240, right? That would have been my ideal, like, close price, like minimum above 240. We obviously closed below that at 238.17. So a little bit of weakness, right? It's a bit of a weaker close than I would have liked to see, which makes me a little bit less confident overall. I'm still more confident than, I guess, bearish technically, right? I'm more bullish than bearish, but above 240 would have been ideal because we would have held up just a psychological level, a crucial level, that just 240 that we've traded out many times. You can see on the daily over here, right? If you go to the 4 hours, it's a bit easier to see, right? You can see many times we traded around this 240 level below and above, acting as a resistance and support over and over. Now that we're closing below it, technically there's a possibility we turn it now into a resistance. So we'll see how that ends up playing out tomorrow and Friday. I think that'll be really important because I do want to close above that, but I really want to get back above the 21 EMA, which is pretty much by Friday, we'll be close to about 246, I think, right? When it comes back down to us slowly. I do want to recapture that by the end of the week. That to me is like one thing I'm really hoping we do. Again, on the weekly, we are still going to be above all of those, assuming we go above 240, right? We'll still close above the 21 EMA, the 50-day moving average, 200 moving average as well. So things are looking pretty okay on the weekly, in my opinion, so far. But on the daily, I definitely want to recapture at the very least 240, ideally above 245. And that will be the kind of, the main thing I'm looking at. Now, some people were also talking about the TTM squeeze. We've been talking about the TTM squeeze for a while, that it's building up like a lot of momentum, right? To really explode in a certain direction. Of course, the direction or the question mark is just which direction is it? Well, even this move itself wasn't what the squeeze indicator was, I guess, anticipating in terms of it's still squeezing. It still hasn't really truly picked a direction, right? You can see the red circles are still very much there on the weekly. They're still very much there. So the direction hasn't been picked. It is getting pretty neutral here. You can see, right? It's still technically on the bearish side, but it's pretty neutral, right? It obviously flipped to being pretty neutral. The MACD is pretty much neutral. It almost feels like there's a lot of momentum being built up for Tesla, and it's just waiting for something. I was hoping that something will be the catalyst of earnings, or sorry, of delivery and production numbers. Clearly it wasn't. Maybe earnings will be the case, but that's another like 2 weeks away. So maybe we just chop sideways for 2 weeks. I'm not entirely sure in terms of that respect, in terms of the time frame of it, as to when things will happen. But what I do expect to happen next personally is, assuming we hold this area and we do bounce off this bullish retest of this bullish flag, I personally expect, assuming that happens and we recapture the 240s, a retest of the breakdown from this ascending wedge, right? This ascending wedge that we did break down from. I wouldn't be surprised if we come up to do a retest. That would be a pretty substantial move up, right? We pretty much go back up into the 260s, pretty much come back to potentially even retest this overall descending, pretty much area that we're in since all-time highs, right? This all-time high resistance, right? That you can see over here, the final boss resistance, as I like to call it. And that would pretty much bring us right back into that area to retest that once again. But again, who knows how long that'll take, right? Sometimes these retests of these breakdowns and breakouts take a while. Sometimes they take not too long. Sometimes they happen almost instantly. So I don't know the time frame. That's the problem that I can't answer for sure. But again, as long as we hold this bullish flag retest, so far it's playing out pretty much the way you would expect it to. I've been talking about this for quite some time, that I want to see a retest, and so far it seems like we're getting that retest, and so far we're holding. So I really want to see follow through on this. I really want to see the bull step in here, and I do really want to see us recapture the 21 EMA sometime this week, ideally. So that's the main thing I'm looking at right now. Bit of a hectic day, a lot of stuff happening. I did buy the dip, obviously. On a day like this, it's hard not to, especially when we're still technically in a very bullish looking structure. But I definitely want to see follow through from the bulls here, and I definitely don't want to see us go too much lower than this as well. So yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it. I personally, I still think that Tesla's looking more bullish than bearish here. I know that might be crazy. Some people might be going like, man, how could you possibly even think that? But that's just the way I look at it. That's the way I see it. Stochastic is pretty much oversold as well. Whenever it gets this oversold, pretty much always it comes up to at least the median line over here of around 0.6 to 0.7, if not even higher as well. So we'll see. But I'm still feeling bullish. Obviously, it's a little spooky, but I'm still feeling pretty good. I'm still feeling pretty confident, and I'm not throwing in the towel or anything like that whatsoever. So yeah, we'll see how this plays out. But all in all, I think it's looking still pretty darn good. Just hope this retest actually holds. But all in all, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. And as usual, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.